On January 11th, 2016, we had taken Tinsley to the hospital because we noticed a large lump in her stomach. Our world was just shattered when we were told that Tinsley had leukemia. We just felt like the air was just taken out of the room. We spent the next 4 months receiving chemo. Finally, we got good news, and that test came back that she was clear of leukemia. And so in May, we got to go home and she was finished with her treatment. And unfortunately, again, at the end of November, Tinsley had relapsed with her leukemia. And at that point, we were just kind of really confused, not really sure what God was trying to tell us, but we knew that He was trying to tell us something. And there were many times that I just would get so tired of it. We've already been through this, Lord. We've already gone through this. Why do we go through it again, especially here at Christmas? So it was hard because there were times that I had to tell Talon that he could not go see his sister. And there were times that I stayed at the hospital and, he didn't know where he was going, and he'd either stay with my mom or he would stay with Chris or he would stay at the hospital. There were many times where my mom would just say, just let it out. Just let it out. And I just finally just had to break down. And I had to get that good cry out. And then I had to say, okay, God, you're going to give me the strength and I'm going to get back up and we're just going to do this. What was so amazing is how fast after Tinsley was first diagnosed that, kind of word spread, and our church stepped up and our Sunday school class stepped up and they brought us, goodie baskets for Tinsley and for Talon and, gift cards for food. It's just amazing to see how God lifts you up through a whole congregation. Just last week, we were told that Tinsley is 100% donor and leukemia-free in her peripheral and her bone marrow. And so now Tinsley is home, and we just take it day by day. There were definitely hard times, and there were times where I just felt like I don't know what to do. But through it all, God just continued to say, give her to me and trust me. Give her to me and trust me. And He just would give me such a peace about that. And we are just so thankful to God for what He's done in our lives. And to say that there are not hard days still to come, but I know that God is going to see us through it. Isaiah 41:10. Do not fear, for I am with you. Do not anxiously look about you, for I am your God. I will strengthen you. Surely I will help you. Surely I will uphold you with my righteous right hand.
So grateful for Chris and Valerie's faith story, and they have learned a really valuable spiritual practice. And that is that strength comes from a peculiar kind of waiting. And that's what the promise that we're going to experience this morning is all about. And so we're in this series that's called I'm Here. It comes from the voice of God, and it comes exclusively from these promises of the ancient prophet Isaiah, and they are the promises of God's presence, the power of His presence. So I want to ask an important question, a question that could be really helpful to your life. You ready for that? A question that could be really helpful to your life. So what is the goal? What is the goal of mountain climbing? Right? What's the goal of mountain climbing? Answer, get to the top, right? No, wrong. Because do you know it turns out that is the mistake? That is the mistake of the over 200 frozen dead bodies at the peak of Mount Everest. They thought the goal was to get to the top. Expert climbers will say, no, that's not the goal. The goal is to summit and still have the strength to make it back to base camp. Because Because it is the mistake, as I said, that most make. In fact, the number one cause of death on the top of Everest for most climbers is this. Are you ready? Getting tired is the number one cause. One of the most well-known examples of that is a climber in 2006 who summited. And then as he made his way down, he made it down about 1,500 feet just off the summit. And then he stopped and sort of got under this overhang and sat down and froze in place. Conscious, but froze in place. He had lost so much strength that he could not free himself. And he is now frozen in place. For every climber, even today, can see him sitting there as they pass by that mark when they climb even this year. And so it's hard to appreciate. It's really hard to appreciate the effects of losing 66% of the oxygen percentage in your air. It's like really hard to imagine what that does. Your body becomes more fatigued and weary than you even think possible. Your lungs and your heart and your muscles are screaming for that fuel, and it takes weakness and exhaustion and fatigue to a whole new level. But I'm going to take a big wild guess here. I'm going to guess that you probably already sort of know what that feels like. Because life and circumstances have sapped that kind of strength out of you. Because of what your career has been doing, it sort of sounds like 1,500 feet from the summit of Everest. Because of what's going on with your spouse or one of your kids, it's just sapping your strength at a whole new level. Because of what's going on with your health or what's happened in your marriage or what's going on in your own personal economy, it feels like you're breathing about 66% less oxygen, and you're screaming for the fuel that will give you strength. And weakness and weariness and exhaustion and fatigue are making you want to just sit down and quit. God makes a promise. God makes a promise about strength in these promises of Isaiah. And there is this promise in Isaiah 40 that just sort of changes life. And so I want you to see it. It is this promise of God's presence, and it's in Isaiah 40. It's going to be both in Isaiah 40 and 41. And it begins in verse 28. And just listen to the promise. Listen how it unfolds. And so the Word of God says this: do you not know? Have you not heard? The everlasting God, the Lord, the creator of the ends of the earth, He does not get tired. He gives strength to the weary, and to him who lacks might, He increases power. Though youths grow weary and tired, and vigorous young men stumble badly, yet those who wait on the Lord will gain new strength. They will mount up with wings like eagles. They will run and not get tired. They will walk and not become weary. And then it culminates just a few verses later in 41 verse 10 where the voice of God turns to you and me directly, and He says, do not fear, for I am with you. There is the promise of His presence. Do not anxiously look about you, for I am your God. I will strengthen you. Surely I will help you. Surely I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. This is the Word of God. It speaks supernaturally into the lives that listen to it. And it speaks this big idea. This passage speaks this big idea. When living in crisis makes you weak and weary and tired, strength can be found. But it can be found in a peculiar kind of waiting. And I want us to explore that waiting for the moments that we have. And so, can this really happen? Can I really find strength by waiting? I mean, let's question that. Let's actually question that in the passage. And so, let's ask, wait on who? Wait, why wait? Wait, how? And what happens if I wait? Let's ask those. Let's jump in. Let's look at verse 28 and let's ask, wait on who? Verse 28 tells us who we wait on. And so, who am I waiting for? You're waiting on this one identified in verse 28. And so there are these 5 descriptions given of him. And simply by describing him, you see that he is worth and worthy of waiting on. And so listen to it again. Have you not heard the everlasting God, the Lord, the creator of the ends of the earth? He does not get tired. His understanding is inscrutable. Those 5 descriptions of God give us all we need for who we wait on. Let's jump in and look at them. Number 1, the everlasting God. It means that he's timeless, and there is no time in which he does not exist. Number 2, he is the Lord. That's God's name, his given name, the name he gave himself. That name that means I am, that I am. It means self-existent. But more than that, it means sufficiency. And so there is never a situation in which he is not enough. Everlasting God, there's never a time in which he doesn't exist. Yahweh, I am. There is no circumstance in which I am not enough. Number 3, the creator of the ends of the earth. There is no place in which he is not. Go anywhere in the universe and there is God. Number 4, he does not become weary or tired. It means that there is no limit to his strength. Nothing can make him tired. Nothing in your life can fatigue him to exhaustion. He is the God who does not get tired. Number 5, his understanding is inscrutable. Inscrutable means I can't understand it. It's too high. It's too big. It's too complex. It means that it's limitless. His understanding is limitless. It means that there's nothing too complex for him, that there are no imponderables to him, that there's never too much information for him to absorb, that there's nothing too intellectually difficult for him. This is who we wait for, the limitless God. But secondly, wait, why? Wait, why? Verse 29 tells us why. It tells us because of what he does. The first answers because of who he is. Who do we wait for? We wait for God because of who he is. Number 2, why? Why wait? Wait because of what he does. The answer, because of what he does. Verse 29, he gives strength to the weary. And this is identifier, in fact. Verse 29, he gives strength to the weary. Grammatically, it turns out that this cannot mean, this little phrase, he gives strength to the weary. It cannot mean that it is something that he does occasionally or that he does on a whim. But that it is a part of who he is. It is what constantly comes out of him. He gives the weary strength. And so there is this collection of words. You saw them in the text, the collection of words that are translated either weary or tired. And so they mean this. They mean to lose inherent strength. You know, inherent strength. Just the strength that a person is. A lot of times you'll say about a person that, they're just not a very strong person. You're talking about their inherent strength. You look at another person, you say, he or she's a rock. You're talking about their inherent strength. And so one of these words means actually losing that. You go through such difficulty that you lose inherent strength. But the other word means complete exhaustion. This is even the rocks, even those that you would call a rock. They've just been through so much for such a long time that they just come to exhaustion. Those are the kind of weakness and weariness and tiredness that Isaiah is describing here, and that is exactly the kind of person that this passage says that God gives strength. He gives them strength. The word is very particular. This word, strength, means actually a good word for it is ability. He gives them ability. And so it's not just some raw, undefined strength, but a focused strength to do what is required for the need before you. It is that focused. He gives you ability. But it turns out that he only gives this power to a certain kind of person. You listening for that? He gives this kind of power actually only to a certain kind of person, a weak one. They are the only ones equipped to receive it. In fact, that's what makes the gospel paradox of the exchange of weakness to strength so powerful. Here is Christ. Here is the gospel. Here is Christ going to the cross and pouring out all of his strength and becoming infinitely weak on the cross in order to give us strength. You want to see that work itself out? Look at 2 Corinthians 12, and here is Paul the apostle, who says that he contracts this thorn in the flesh, and nobody knows what it is. There are like 29 explanations. Don't waste your time figuring it out, right? But it is something debilitating. And so here he is praying to God over and over and over to remove it, and God doesn't do it. And then God speaks into his life and says, look, God has said to me, my grace is enough. This is power. My grace is enough for you. For power is perfected or completed in your weakness. When you get empty, then something powerful can happen. And so he says about himself, most gladly, therefore, I would rather brag about how weak I am, so that the power of Christ may dwell in me. Verse 10, therefore, conclusion, here's what I'm coming to as a principle of my life. He says, I am content with my weaknesses, with insults, with distresses, with persecutions, all of those things that sap your strength, with difficulties, for Christ's sake. For when I am weak, then I am strong. And so it turns out that God's strength is not available to the self-confident. How you like those apples? It's not available to those who know how powerful they are in themselves. It's not available to the ones who believe they are really sufficient. It's only available to those who know how weak they are. And so that weakness qualifies them for grace to begin pouring into their inner lives. And so the ultimate question is, really, can God really do this? Can God really do that, give that kind of strength? That was actually the question of the people of Isaiah's day. By chapter 40, some terribly shredding things have been going on in the lives of everyone that Isaiah is writing about. Because it is in this moment that in Isaiah's day that the whole nation has been overrun by the great Babylonian Empire. And so they have been taken away in waves, wave after wave. They've been taken away into slavery to the great cities of Babylon and made into servants and slaves. And so that's the question. That's the collective question on the heart of every person in their culture. Does God really have the power to give me that kind of strength? And so all of chapter 40 is actually about that. It's answering that question. But I think it's sort of shrink-wrapped. I think it is sort of just like compacted in verse 26. I love verse 26. And so here's Isaiah answering that question. Can God really do it? Verse 26. And he says, well, let me answer it this way. Lift up your eyes. Lift up your eyes on high and see who has created the stars. The one who leads forth their host by number. He calls them all by name. Because of the greatness of his might and the strength of his power, not one of them is missing. What's Isaiah saying? Isaiah is saying, you want to know if he has the power to do this? Then just look up and tell me what you see. And you look up and you see a sun and moon and stars. And so it reminds us that our sun is 110 times larger than this planet that we're living on, that we're spinning on, right? It would take 1.3 million Earths to fill up our sun. But it turns out that our sun is kind of an unremarkable sun in the Milky Way galaxy, because, you know, there are only about 400 billion more like it, and a lot of them are a lot better than it. And there are about And there turns out to be about 100 billion more galaxies like ours are greater than the Milky Way galaxy. And so, you do a little calculus and you figure out that there's a total of about 10 to the 24th power total stars in the universe. That's going to get updated, as it does like every, other year. 10 to the 24th power stars. How many is that? Well, the how many is, okay, do a 1 and follow it with 24 zeros. Does that really help you? Here's the deal. 10 to the 24th is a number so big it doesn't even have a name. It's so huge. And the point of the verse is this, that he's the one who has numbered them. Do you get how incredible that is? He's the one who has numbered those stars. He's the one who has named those stars. And so look, we only have about 250,000 words in our whole vocabulary, even to use, That falls way short. Here is God. He's got 10 to the 24th power, just names alone in his vocabulary. He's the one who keeps them in motion, the verse says. And so every night, if you look, well, you can't really look up because you live in Houston. If you look up, you don't see anything, right? But if you were to live out in West Texas like I did as a little kid and walk out on the flatlands, where there is this big sky, you would look up in the summer straight up, and the North Star is where it's supposed to be. And the Big Dipper in the northwest sky in the summer, it's where it is supposed to be. And so is Andromeda, and so is Cassiopeia, and so is Orion. They're all where they're supposed to be. And so are all the other 10 to the 24th power stars are where they are supposed to be, and they are in perfect motion because God sets them that way. And so tell me what kind of being could create them. Tell me what kind of being that could fling them billions of light years across the universe. Tell me what kind of being that could put them in motion, that could hold them in motion and then number them and name each one. Tell me what kind of being. The answer is a God big enough to give you what you need for what you face is the answer. But there's a third question. Wait on who? Wait. Why wait? Thirdly, wait. How? Really, that's the core, right? How? How do I wait in a way that I gain new strength? It happens in verse 31. Yet those who wait on the Lord. That word wait, it's the Hebrew word kavah. It's incredibly rich in the Old Testament. It appears nearly 50 times, and it just has this rich, well-rounded meaning. And so in the Old Testament, it is used. It has these three major aspects, and they are the aspects that connect exactly to your life. How do you wait? You wait like this. Number one, the first way the word is used is that it means hope. The word means hope. It's hope with certainty. Now, I want you to think about hope. Hope has no power unless the object of your hope causes wonder in you. Hope has no power in your life unless the object of your hope creates wonder in your life. And your hope is in the one who is everlasting, who is the I am, who is the creator of the ends of the earth, who does not and cannot get tired, whose understanding, his wisdom, his intelligence is far beyond anything you could imagine. Does that cause wonder? But it's not just hope. How do you wait? Here's how you wait. You wait with hope. But how do you wait? You wait this way. The second way the word is used in the Old Testament is to wait patiently. And so I want you to think about this. It's first hope, then wait. Because if you have hope, and you have hope in the way that I've just described, then endurance grows. And if you have hope in the being who is infinite in himself, and his strength is infinite, and his power is infinite, and his love for you is infinite, well then guess what? Your endurance can be infinite. Strength fills you up, and you can wait. And you can endure. And so how do you wait on the Lord? You wait, but you hope with certainty, and then you wait patiently. There's a third way the word is used, and it applies directly to your life. And then you rest. You rest trustfully. It's the third way the word is used in the Old Testament, and this means faith. This means emptying your confidence in yourself. This means constantly renewing your confidence in the God who is everlasting, the one who is I am, the creator of a billion stars, the one whose understanding you'll never understand because it is so great. And so I want us to draw it down and apply it right here. How do I wait? I'm going to give you a simple answer that is real and true, and it works. I've never experienced growing hope, patient waiting, and resting that trust without seeking God's presence. Where does it come from? It comes from the promise. It comes from experiencing God's presence. How? How do you do that? How do you wait on God in these three ways, and it actually gives you strength? It comes this way, by finding His presence, listen to this, in prayer. And don't let that be some sort of empty Sunday school answer to you. Because this is where it happens. It happens in prayer. It happens, look, it means this: go and get in God's presence. I'm going to give you sort of the checklist. Go and get in God's presence. And then stay there a long time. And so it means long enough to quiet the distracting noises in your life, because you'll never put yourself in God's presence without the act of putting yourself in God's presence. Number 3, I literally mean put down the technology. I know it'll have to be surgically removed from your hand, but put down the technology. Turn off the device. Turn the screen away and just be in His presence. The best device to have in front of you for God's presence is this device. Turn to Isaiah 40 and just drink in every word. And not leaving until you feel hope, until you're content with waiting, until you have confidence that God is enough. And for a few of you, you're going, man, I have to be in God's presence a long time. That's the point. That's the actual point. Verse 31 says there is a result of that. And that is that if you wait on God in the way I've just described, verse 31, you will gain new strength. That word gain there, actually, it means this. The word gain means to keep putting on fresh. To keep putting on fresh strength. So guess what happens? You go back and repeat the process of getting in God's presence over and over. And what will happen? You will keep putting on fresh strength. It's sort of the picture of putting on fresh, clean clothes. Over and over and over. Put on fresh, clean strength by being in God's presence. Verse 31, and then what will happen? Verse 31 says, you will soar like an eagle. So, here's a helpful question. How do birds fly? You came for that intellectual stimulation, didn't you, right? How do birds fly? Your answer? They flap their wings. Yeah, that's how birds fly, except not eagles. They're built for an entirely different kind of flying. They are built to soar, not flap around. In fact, it causes them to be able to travel further and higher than any other creature. And so It seems that God has whispered something in their ears. It seems that God's told them about an invisible power that He didn't tell any of the other birds. It's a power that you and I can't even see. He's whispered to them about invisible columns of heated air that rush up called thermals, and they rise here and there. And He has shown them where to find them. And when they fly into these invisible updrafts, have you ever seen that happen? Then they spread their wings and they begin to circle, and they just lift. They just lift, and they keep lifting, and they keep soaring, and they keep going higher and higher. Scientists say they can soar as high in these thermals as 14,000 feet. You can't even see that high. That's so high. And then they fly out from it, and they soar for miles and miles and miles and miles. And that is what God gives you when you wait. God Himself becomes an invisible, uplifting, thermal current in your life. When you hope in Him, when you wait patiently on Him, when you rest confidently in Him, you are just spreading eagle's wings to catch His upward power. And so we mount up with wings like eagles. We run and do not grow weary. We walk and we do not faint. And so there's no more frantically flapping around through the air like sparrows in distress, but we catch the upward draft of God's grace. That's what happens. Last word. What happens if I wait? Verse 10 tells us what happens. Do not fear, for I am with you. Do not anxiously look about you, for I am your God. I will strengthen you. Surely I will help you. Surely I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. What if I could show you your strength? How would that change you? What if I could show you your strength? I'm showing you your strength right here. That He is with you. His presence is all around you. And so therefore you don't have to be afraid. You don't have to anxiously look around you because He, look at the verse, He holds you. That is your strength. I'm going to ask us to bow together.